All right, go for it, Weston.
Welcome, everyone, to MS Office Hours. It is Thursday, November 7th. Let me please introduce our hosts.
Hey, everybody, I'm Heather Cox.
And I'm Andrea Sangrio. So excited to be with all of you this week and super excited. Cybersecurity Month was last month, but we are lucky to have Mark Dunkel being able to join us first session this month. And so we'll hand it over to Mark to get started.
Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Heather. It's awesome to see so many faces that I've worked with in the past. Jason, I will reserve comment. Go blue. So today I'm here to talk about security access for your campus through Microsoft Entra Suite. Some of you may have seen this, some of you may have not. Marge, at InfoSec, this is what I was going to present. It happened to align with my daughter's 16th birthday, so I couldn't come out in the spring or in the fall, but I will certainly be out in the spring. So I like to kind of orientate everyone. Microsoft has been investing so much in security tools, clients, management tools, and we really look at this all under the same security umbrella, because the way the security graph works and the way these products are engineered, they're really designed to work with one another, right? And so I'm going to focus all my time on the left-hand side. I'm really excited about the Entra Suite and the things that you can do with the Entra Suite. It's way more than just Entra ID P2 and P1 or privileged identity management, et cetera. There's a lot of new capabilities that hit the marketplace on July 1st, and they joined some of the other things that we already GA'd. So I just want to talk to you about the Entra Suite, what's involved there, where the value proposition is, and at the very end, I'm going to tell you some really cool ways that you can improve the way you're doing your help desk right now. With verified ID. This seems to be a low-hanging fruit type of workload that's adding a lot of value through campuses across the country. So as you can see, we're going to be talking about Entra, so we're going to be talking about identity. Yes, we used to call this Azure Active Directory, and now we call it Entra ID. That's just another name change, but this is the space we're playing in. Of course, everything here, again, communicates with the security graph. Everything in here would communicate with Copilot for security, as well as third parties as well. So they're all kind of tied together in the broader security strategy. So when we talk about identity, it's just incredibly important. I know a lot of the folks that focus on security here already know this, but the identity-based attacks are really attached to just about every type of breach that happen. We're seeing about 4,000 password attacks detected per second. That's about 8 times more than what we had in the past. Go ahead. I see someone's hands up.
I don't think the screen is being shared.
Oh, thank you for that heads up. How about now?
Yep, we're good.
Perfect.
Money.
So as I mentioned, it's about 8-fold from just 2 years ago. We're seeing about 4,000 password attacks detected by Microsoft per second. So we all know that identity is the foundation of security, and this is really what we're going to be focusing on a lot today around the Entra Suite. I'll talk to you about some of the productivity things and some of the ways that we can become more efficient, but it's all wrapped around the lens of that zero trust. So it's all about verify explicitly, and least privilege access is going to be highlighted a lot in assume breach as we're thinking about our end users, and not only how we onboard, but how we offboard. How do we look for overprivileged accounts, not only your admin accounts, but your end users, make sure they only have access to what they need, make sure that we're cleaning up access when we can, and making sure that we're providing very specific access rights to resources, whether those workloads are in the cloud or within our on-premise environments. And so that's really what the Entra Suite is going to help us out and do across the board. So when we think about what a lot of our customers are doing right now in terms of thinking about generative AI solutions and the things that they need to do right now, that's been a huge catalyst for data security. Data security has been top of mind for everyone that's looking at generative AI type of solutions. How do we make sure not only that we can detect our sensitive information that's going throughout our environment, but how do we make sure that we're not over authorized on content? Academic environments are hard, right? We have so many students coming and going all the time. We have large volumes of faculty and staff that change positions. They leave our campus. They move to a different campus. Some of the folks that I see on here are part of a system. And sometimes they go between systems. And so how do we make sure that your access rights are not, you're not over authorized to see content, that when you change the job position and that sort of thing, how do we make sure that we reconcile that and make sure that your permissions dynamically change in an automated way that we can scale as an organization? And education really is at the forefront of this. So when we're thinking about identity-based attacks and identity and access management, some of the things I'm talking about, also think about, this is not just a purview thing for data security, but this is about who your users have, where they have access. Are they overprivileged? Are there ways where we can clean that up more effectively with high volumes of traffic and users that we see? So generative AI is a big driver of this. There's other areas around over permissioning, obviously through SharePoint and Teams and OneDrive and SharePoint and throughout our environment, to make sure that content's not over permissioned when we turn on things like Copilot for security. But we're also managing extremely complex environments around all the SaaS applications and the multi-clouds that you support. So how do we do that effectively? How do we do that consistently? How do we have conditional access policies that could go both for our on-premise SaaS applications as well as our SaaS applications, as well as our private on-premise applications throughout our environment? How do we make sure that we have the same type of policies when we're using AWS or GCP or Azure? How do we, make sure that we do that with the staff that we have? So all this is some of the things that the Entra Suite can help us out with. Now, one of the questions that's going to certainly come up is around, is this part of A5 or this is part of E5? Some of the components are. Some of the components are actually part of A3. So when I look at identity and access management on this slide, and I look over to the left-hand slide, this is where Entra IDP1 would be for A3 users. And then there's some additional capabilities around identity governance and administration. So that would be part of Entra IDP2. Specifically, some of the access review stuff that is available here. Privileged identity management, or PIM, would be part of this particular group. And then on the far right-hand side, when we talk about advanced identity protection, that's also part of Entra IDP2. So when we're talking about the Entra Suite, right, you guys have been using Entra ID P1 or P2. You've been using PIM. You've been using conditional access policies. You've been using identity protection. A lot of that is already in a lot of your licensing today. Not everything in governance ID is part of that, and we'll talk about that. Some of the new secure edge type of technologies that we introduced in internet access is part of the Entra Suite, or can be purchased independently. And then when we talk about independent credential verification through verified ID, that is not going to be something that's either can be purchased separately or with face check, or it's actually included in a lot of your licenses with verified ID. The only thing that's really not included in that is the face check component. And I'll talk to you about that in my scenario around help desk at the end of the presentation. So the reason why I wanted to show you this slide, though, is how much Microsoft is investing in security, how much we are really focused on this as the core thing that we have to look at when we're thinking about security breaches. Everything involves an identity. So when we're looking at how broadly we're looking at it, and you look at the rest of the marketplace, you can see that the Entra Suite kind of covers a lot of things that you may already have solutions for today. Some of these solutions, if you wanted to, for example, around zero network access, zero trust network access, or secure web gateways, sometimes you could just integrate. You could run them side by side. So you could run our internet access and private access with existing solutions that actually exist if you wanted to. So there's a way to either replace or to coincide, but Microsoft is looking at this particular space very broadly, and we're investing very broadly. And of course, everything here would be accessible through threat intelligence and through your incident response and through Copilot for security and those sorts of things. So I wanted to give you a high-level overview of 5 of these core areas around the Entra Suite. So I want to talk to you a little bit about private access. I want to talk to you about internet access, and I want to talk to you about governance ID, and I want to talk to you about verified ID, and of course, identity protection. A lot of you guys are already using identity protection. Well, when it comes to Microsoft Entra Private Access, this is kind of the modern identity-centric zero trust network access solution. You don't need a VPN. And so if you have legacy hardware and you have the operations of supporting that and maintaining that, this is cloud native. So you don't really need that. It's going to work across any device from any location. So it allows your users, it allows you to be able to provide kind of quick access for your remote users from any device, from any network to all your private apps, whether those apps are on premises in the cloud. And that's without a VPN. Now, at the end, I'll show you that not only can you provide access, you can provide very, very specific access to the applications that we're talking about. You could provide it to subnets within your environment, to IP addresses, to very specific workloads. So it's not like providing VPN access to the broad network. You can get very granular about the paths that those users can take while they're on your network. And you can, through some of the other solutions, you can grant and deny access over time, so they just don't exist indefinitely. So this is our ZetNet solution around private access, and this is, again, providing your remote users that secure access without a VPN to your on-premise and your cloud resources. When it comes to Entra Internet Access, this is our secure web gateway. So this allows you to not only look at things around, things like internet filtering and protecting people from what they could do on the internet, but it's also looking at all your SaaS applications. And you can also drive policy about what SaaS applications that your end users would have access to and which they don't have access to, being able to revoke that, being able to see exactly the paths that they can take to your internet-facing applications. You'll be able to kind of control that. You'll also be able to read that through like generative AI tools, through things like Copilot for Security. There's additional capabilities around, monitoring your network traffic as it relates to your users or your applications or your devices and how those various different entities are using the internet. You can have all this universally controlled. You can have tenant restrictions, you can have token protection, TLS inspection, things at the firewall level. And so all this can exist within the Entra Internet access space. I'm going to kind of tie this, I'm going to bring it back and kind of show you how all this works together near the end, but this is where our Microsoft Entra Internet Access. So private access is really for your on-premises and your cloud environments, where internet access is all things internet SaaS based when we're actually using that and the type of policies and the security that we can put on that. This one's really exciting. We VA'd this quite a while ago, and there's a lot of different things that we can do with identity governance, and I think it's really important for academic environments. So there's a few things that I'm going to focus on here as we walk through this. So one of the things that I'm going to focus on when I talk about Entra ID governance is the ability to have identity lifecycle workflows. So I want you to think about within our campuses and all the different populations that we have joiners, we have movers, we have leavers, right? So we have, whether it's a student, whether it's a faculty member, whether it's an external employee, an affiliate, whatever we have joiners, movers, and leavers. The joiners are the folks that are joining our organization. The leavers are leaving our organizations. The movers are maybe changing a job, moving to a different campus, that sort of thing. We can automate and we can apply workflows directly through the tool to be able to kind of handle those sorts of moves. So we can have a workflow, and I'll talk about some of the scenarios that we can do with that. Entitlement management gives us the ability to determine what people have access to. And so with entitlement management, I can create access packages, and I can say that if you're part of this particular, if you're a student, or if you are a faculty member, or if you're part of this particular school of business or this department or that department, anytime that we onboard someone, you automatically have access to these resources, these applications, whether they're SaaS-based, whether they're on-premise-based, and we can couple that and kind of templatize those access points so you can kind of automatically distribute that. We can connect to your ERP systems. We can have direct integrations with things like Workday that can go to Entra ID or your on-premise Active Directory, and it synchronizes up. And so you can have this notion of having workflows and access packages of what people have access to see or what they don't have access to see. You can also have access reviews. So access reviews are built into the product as well, to where it allows you to do things like revoke access and make sure that people don't have too much access to content over time. So one of the things, for example, at Microsoft, there's various different tools that we use, tools that maybe check licensing or to check tenants and see what's happening within a tenant, what licenses are there, what you have activated. We have kind of high-level views of some of this stuff. But we always have to go and go through an access review and get, after a period of time, get granted access to those systems again, right? Microsoft does not provide us standing access indefinitely just because I'm an employee at Microsoft. For certain products that we have or certain applications that we have, it's only for a period of time, but maybe it's quarterly, to while I'll either have to self-attest or my manager will have to approve. You can do both of those things here. Another thing you can do with access to reviews is delegate that. And so if you have, for example, some researchers that are working on a particular project X, and you provide access to the folks that are coming in, maybe you have Jason Pollock coming in from Ohio State University, and maybe Jason is coming in and we're going to research on something together. But after time, that research goes away, Jason's no longer involved in the project, but a lot of the artifacts of his authorization is still available. So access reviews allows me to delegate that and go back to the owner of that, whatever project that was, and say, please review this list and revoke whoever doesn't need access anymore. You can also have it set to expirations. For example, if we're working with a partner or with someone that needed access within our environment, maybe it's just an external vendor that you're working with and the contract's going to be up at the end of the year, you could have those automatically revoke at the end of the year. So whenever we're talking about all these different scenarios, we're onboarding and offboarding, join or move or leave, and the ability to automate that from an efficiency gain standpoint, and the fact that we can integrate with our ERP systems, that's fantastic that we can do that. But also from a security standpoint, we're doing our due diligence to make sure that people don't have just extended permissions forever on all these different systems, and we're making sure that we're cleaning them up. We provide you a lot of flexibility, whether it's self-attestation that says, I just need access to this application. I'm going to provide a justification. That's fine. Maybe it has to go to a manager, depending on the level of application that it is. Maybe you go through multiple steps before that person's approved. And also the ability to delegate whether that person still needs access to those applications. The fact that we can automatically offboard people. So let's say someone retires or someone leaves the organization or moves to a different team or organization, we can also automatically deprovision some of the permissions that we have across teams and SharePoint, et cetera, through that process. So from an efficiency standpoint and from a security standpoint, where we're always trying to provide least privilege access, that's really important. Part of this space too, when we're talking about ID governance, is privilege access lifecycle or privilege identity management. So that's for your privilege access throughout your accounts. And that's going to be both for M365 type of admin resources, as well as your resources in Azure. So people don't have 24/7 standing access to that. And there's a bunch of different settings and workflows that we have to make sure that we're not having elevated privileges for too long. We can time bomb those, and people could only have those particular roles and responsibilities for a period of time to do their job, and then they're automatically revoked, so we don't have those standing that exposure to us. Identity protection is something a lot of you already have. This would be part of your Entra ID P2, and this is what you're using in your conditional access policies. And these are the things that are detecting things like impossible travel, and if your credentials are have been impacted on the dark web, and someone's trying to sell your credentials, it could impact your user score. There's a bunch of different things around identity protection that could impact your score. And then because we're using conditional access policies, right within the conditional access policies, if my user risk changed, some of my access would change automatically. If one of you and I were both admins and we could have access to secure content within our environment, and all of a sudden in session, I was noted as being a risky user for whatever reason, we could automatically restrict things like the sensitive information files until that gets corrected. So there's a lot of really rich things that we can do with identity protection that you probably are already doing today, but this is built into the Entra Suite. So all those scenarios that I was talking to you about when we're talking about internet access or private access to your on-premise and your cloud resources, your SaaS resources, your M365 resources, all those policies could also be applied with information protection. So what that means is no matter where anyone goes without a VPN in your environment, no matter what location they are, no matter what OS that they're using, no matter if it's a cloud-based employee or an on-premise employee, or if we're talking about a group or a role, or we're talking about any type of device, no matter what, we can then apply these conditional access policies with identity protection in the session and change on the fly someone's rights and access to our various different systems. Really important when we're trying to think about least privilege access and identifying a risk in session, and then modifying our policy in session to make sure that that access is not, we just don't maintain that access when we know something is wrong or could potentially be wrong. The last one I'm going to cover with Entra Verified is Entra Verified ID. So for folks, I know a lot of folks have looked into this. If you have not looked into Verified ID, a lot of this is part of your existing licenses. There's one part of Verified ID that's not, that I think is important for a lot of different scenarios, and that's Verified ID with face check. And this is the scenario, and well, I'll talk a little bit about Verified ID. Verified ID runs an authenticator. It allows issuers like yourself, for example, we're very comfortable with, let's say I have a Michigan driver's license, and the state of Michigan gives me, they're the issuer of my driver's license, and it has a bunch of claims about me, right? And then I could use that driver's license in a variety of different places. My passport, I go out to the government, they give me my passport, a bunch of assertions and claims about me, and a lot of folks will accept those, right? We can continue on with this. When we talk about employment verification scenarios, when we talk about whether I graduated from one of your campuses, right? And validating that I have a diploma, those are all done by the issuer. And I can go out to my issuer, and if I went to a campus X, Y, or Z, I could download that and create these cards, right? That could either verify my employment, my education, so on, etc. And so once you do that, and once you download that and you put it inside your authenticator app, when I go to a source that is asking me for that information, I can provide it to them. So I'm controlling this. This is all built on open standards, and I'm controlling this. And then I could share through my authenticator app someone that has issued those claims to me that is validated, that I cannot put those claims in there myself. This would be coming from your campus to say, for example, I'm employed there, or I have a degree, or I'm a current student, etc. Right? And so you can use Verified ID for a lot of different scenarios. One of the scenarios that a lot of customers have been really interested in right now is around help desk scenarios. So you guys have so many users that you have to work with on a day-to-day basis around help desks that are remote. And how do you validate and know that that user who they say they are? So one of the scenarios, and if anyone wants a demo of this, reach out to your local Microsoft team. If you're one of my accounts right now, I'm happy to demo this for you. But one of the things that you could do in a help desk scenario is you can have someone go to the site, and obviously the help desk person does not know if this person is who they say they are. And by the way, this is what a lot of attackers are doing. They know this is a vulnerable area in your environment, so they're trying to gain access by acting as if they're someone else. And so what you can do with Verified ID is I could go and use either my government issued ID, or I could issue and take a picture of that and have that part of my Verified ID and go against. Or I could just use the profile picture that's within your tenant today, and I could do a face check along with that. So you'd go to the site, and your institution would provide one of these verified employee cards or student cards or whatever it have, and you would download that. and that would have your profile picture in it, and then you could do a face check. And what that face check is going to do is it's going to compare the two. It's going to use a bunch of machine learning. It's going to give you a percentage of the scan and say, with 95% certainty that this person is who they say they are, and then you could pass them through the help desk chain, right? There's a lot of different scenarios. This particular scenario is a scenario that I'm seeing over and over and over again in academic accounts, to where help desk is a real nightmare about validating someone is who they say they are after they have to have access back to the environment and they're remote. And so this is a great solution with that. Now, to give you an idea, well, what would this cost? What would the scenario that I just talked about cost you? It's a verified ID, again, is part of most of your licenses for the most part. The one thing that's not part of that is the face check scan part. And that's about 25 cents a scan. And so let's say you had in a big campus, you might have 1,000 times to where you need to do this face check. That'd be about $250 a month. And when you think about the labor and the stress and the risk of a lot of the ways people are doing this now, this is a no-brainer. This is a really good solution. So verified ID, again, could be used in a lot of different ways, but this is a way that I think it's going to be very, very beneficial for our academic circles. So the last thing is like just tying this all together, and then I'm going to stop and ask or answer questions. But one of the things that Microsoft has always done, we've always done Active Directory very well, right? That turned into Entra, and we have Entra ID, and we had the cloud-based identity, and obviously that's been very successful with us, right? And we've had privilege identity management, and then we had identity protection, and we had conditional access policies, and Azure MFA, and we have all these things, and these are highly used throughout our customer base. But I think the fact that we're getting into identity at a different layer, we're getting into the zero trust network area, we're getting into the secure web gateway area, in terms of how we have, can access, our multi-clouds and our SaaS applications. The fact that we can run those conditional access policies across those environments, the fact that we can begin to really look at how do we automate onboarding, offboarding, job changes, what people have access to, making sure that we are not letting them have access to those applications indefinitely. When I change teams, when I change roles, when I change departments, automatically changing my access to a lot of the applications that I would have at that particular role or not. The ability to delegate with access reviews. This is just a different level of Microsoft and the way we're doing identity lifecycle management. It's exciting. The governance of this information is really important. Again, all this could be kind of a unified approach running through things like conditional access policies that expand across your entire estate. So really excited about the advancements that Microsoft is making around Entra and identity and access management and identity governance across the board. It's an exciting time, but this particular picture kind of begins to kind of outline all that. Clicking on that, you can see where these products, show their face and where they all kind of work together. The Entra Suite is a full suite of products. If you're an existing A5 customer, it's actually your reduced price because you already are running some of the components here. Each one of these could be used independently. So, for example, if a customer wanted to start off with Microsoft Entra ID governance and think about things like entitlement management and access reviews and lifecycle workflows, and that's where you're wanting your focus. Each one of these can be done independently. And if you're an A5 customer, because you already have Entra ID P2, Entra ID is roughly almost half the cost because some of the features are already there in Entra ID P2. So with that said, and coming up close to 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, you can always trial this, all right? And so if you want to trial it, you can go ahead and do that. There's probably things that your account teams your local account teams can do for you. If this is something that is of interest, we could certainly do that too, as well. So with that said, and coming up on time, it's great to see so many people that I know and I've worked with in the past. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Oh, Mark, it's always good to have you come and really share some of the wonderful things we're doing on the security side. And hopefully everybody is going to take a lot of this to heart. Marge said super. So, if Madam President thinks it was a great show, we're all good.
Awesome. And those of you that want the slides, we will work on getting those over to you, and I will get the recording posted as soon as possible so you can share it out. But thank you all. We will see you again next week.
Yep. Clip Champ coming at you next week. That product group will be joining us. So
There you
excited to have
go.
them.
All right. Bye,
Thanks,
y'all.
Nice to see everyone. Take care.